beautiful soul, and welcome to Back to the Beginning Root Cause Conversations. I'm your host, Mona-Lize, a trauma-informed holistic therapist specializing in healing trauma at its root cause and how that transforms human connection. In this podcast, you can expect deep conversations about trauma healing, navigating your spirituality in this complex 3D world, and real transformation stories from people who've done the work. This is where spiritual depth meets practical reality. So without further ado, let's dive in. Well, hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to the second episode of Back to the Beginning, Root Cause Conversations. Thank you for joining me, or should I say us. Today's episode is a guest episode, and I'd love to introduce you to someone incredibly special. I'm here with Candice Anderson, who happens to be one of my closest, dearest friends and soul sister. Candice is a clairvoyant, medium, and animal communicator who also operates within the everyday world where she's a partner in a real estate business, amongst other things. So not only does she function in both the spiritual and the 3D world, which is a part of the bigger theme of this podcast, but she is also highly intuitive and can bring a lot of spiritual perspective on what we're dealing with at the moment. Candice, my beautiful friend, thank you for being here with me today. And I'm so looking forward to getting the perspective of another empathic person on what we're experiencing at a collective level. Have you noticed there is an increased sensitivity at the moment?
Well, yes, I have 100%, but I want to say thank you so much for having me today. It's an absolute honor for me to be able to speak with you about this today. Yes, I have definitely been feeling the sensitivity, not just within myself and my body, and my should I say my emotional body and physical body, but also people around me who are feeling the heightened sensitivities where they've had levels of exhaustion, confusion, fear, anxiety. And it's just been that theme from what I'm feeling, that as we got into the new year, there was a lot of push forward movement really, really quickly that lots of people were not actually ready for, should I say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with us moving into the year of the fire horse. And I have to admit that I've been feeling that too, which is exactly why I wanted us to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about something that's been weighing on many hearts lately. And if you've been feeling more anxious, overwhelmed, or emotionally dysregulated, you're not imagining it. It's real. Before we go any further, I just want to be crystal clear on something. I do not support violence of any kind from any direction towards anyone else. This episode is not about politics. This is about understanding what's happening to our nervous system during the times of global conflict and how and why our individual healing work combined with community support has never been more important. Candice, how is this landing for you personally? What are you noticing in yourself and in the people around you?
Well, I'm noticing there's a lot of fear at the moment, and it's in every person who I've had the privilege to work with or be around, whether it be close friends or family. They are all going through the fear phase, so to speak. And within that, it's so important for people to look around them and to understand where their community is within where they live, because everybody needs that support and structure around them. It's so important. And there has been an emphasis on going back to how things were done, many decades ago, where people did depend more within the communities, that structure, which is so important. And I think more now than ever with what's going on. How have you been feeling about it?
Yes, that's exactly actually what I'm seeing too. You and I both have ties, personal ties and professional ties to the UAE. So this is hitting us in, I think, a different way. But I have picked up that a lot of people who are not even in conflict zones are experiencing more anxiety and fear than normal. even though they're not as exposed to it as what you and I might be, or those who are there. Are you experiencing something similar to this?
100%, definitely. It's you go through stages where you self-talk and you say everything will be okay, because ultimately everything will be okay. But you end up going through the no sleep process, or you end up going through the anxiety process, where during the day your what I'd call fight and flight response is a little bit too high, a little bit too elevated, which doesn't really help decision making or how we think in terms of clarity. And I physically have been feeling it too. So as you very well know, and you helped me through it, we obviously went through a big physical move, and my lower back gave in. And you're very good at these things, with being able to explain why the lower back gave in, as not just the physical side of it, as to why that happens. So a lot of that's been going on too.
Yeah, it's been really odd, and I've what's validating to me though is that science backs up what we're saying, because what they've shown or proven now, or recorded now, let me put it that way, is that 50% of people, 57% of people not living in conflict zones report active hindering anxiety, specifically related to global wars, violence, and conflict.
So why do you think that is?
Well, it's in your face the whole time. It's in your living room. It's on your phone. It's in every conversation that you're having, whether you are open to that or not, to be fair. So we have to be extremely discerning with what we choose to consume, because there is so much fake news out there. So that's the one part of it, but we'll get to the second part of why this is happening in a moment. What I've also seen is how intense it is physically for the people who actually are living within these conflict zones. So what they've reported over a study with all the recent conflict that has risen over the past couple of years is that in active conflict zones, right, 80% of people are experiencing constant stress and anxiety with measurable physical impact. 20% increase in diabetes diagnosis and 16% rise in heart attacks. When you think about that level of trauma and stress, what do you sense about the energy moving outward?
Well, that's a very good question. Because I almost interrupted you there, asking you why you thought that was on a physical level, but on the energetic, spiritual side of thing, the energy we give out, sadly, it just doesn't serve us, because what we put out, we generally do get back, as we know. But that constant fear, or as you'd call it, being in fight or flight mode, and worried about what's going to happen next, worried about the future, how that might look. There's a lot of people during this time that start to question their own, immortality, spirituality, etc. So you will find that a lot of people question more. And that's where you start getting messages from people, physical messages saying, how do you see things happening? Am I going to be okay? Is my family going to be okay? And it's never nice receiving messages like that, because of course you've got to be able to have boundaries for that. However, it goes to show how scared people are, and it's something which we've got to be very sensitive towards.
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to carry more compassion. However, I don't think we should be taking on the external trauma. This is where this gets interesting for me, right? Because you've just explained it from a spiritual and an energetic point of view. Now, if I look at this at a physical level, and I look what fear and anxiety is living in the future, right? We do this in uncertain and ambiguous times. We do that. We think about the possible outcomes, and let's just be honest, there are an infinite amount of outcomes that could come from this. So the thought spiraling is what creates the fear and the anxiety, because we're thinking about something that has not even happened. We don't even know if it's going to happen. We don't even know if tomorrow is going to be here. So why are we living 6 months in the future? But that's the anxiety and the fear part of it. And it's completely human. Your nervous system is programmed in that way. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper in a second. But if you look at the metaphysical, the energetic side of things like diabetes, it's not having enough sweetness in your life. Well, I'd say in times like these, there is a lack of sweetness. So we need to look at that part of our own personal lives, because remember, we're responsible for our own body's healing vessel, that type of thing. And if you look at the heart attacks, we're talking about carrying grief, anger, sadness, anything related to that area, right? And again, this is in your face during conflict times all the time. So we have to be mindful around these things. So in saying that, I think what we're all carrying is this massive, big, invisible wound. And our nervous systems are responding to threats, even though they're not directly happening to us. The human nervous system doesn't know the difference of whether your body is in direct threat, as in the war is happening around you, or it's happening in a different country. So this is where it gets interesting, because the nervous system will respond in the same way, whether you are actually in a conflict zone or far away from it. Okay, so with that in mind, how would you say this affects people's decision-making abilities and their thought processes?
That's a very good question. I do think, and especially when you are doing a reading for someone, you've got to be very, very sensitive to where they are coming from and where they are at. Because sometimes people can ask you questions they're not ready to hear the answer about. And people will, with what's going on, people will generally ask you a question that can be based around fear. And therefore you've always got to ask them, how they feeling about what's currently going on, and try and focus on what it is you can get through for them from spirits, from their guides, so to speak, as to what they can do to help themselves to navigate through, what should we say, whether it be emotional stormy waters or physical stormy waters or worldly happenings. But it does affect people's questions. It does affect people's actions. And that's where, when you do what people like us do, as we know, we have to be incredibly sensitive to where that individual's at. It can cause bigger problems if people start to make these decisions based around fear and desperation, because desperation comes out very, very quickly, because all of a sudden, what I'm finding is people will ask you questions, is this going to impact my income? Am I going to lose my job? Or worried about their partners leaving them because they haven't, they're worried about if they're going to lose their income or not. Or so all these things start going on and on and on in people's heads, like a messy, what's those horror rides that I don't do? What are they called again?
Oh, the Fate.
Yes,
Those
what are they
scary
called
rides.
again? They really, really scare me, and I won't go on those.
The roller coasters.
Roller coaster. Thank you. Thank you. So that's where you've got people have to be very, very careful and mindful, but it affects people on every level. And I don't think that anybody in that point in time actually can contemplate that the questions they're asking is based from fear or desperation.
So we go down these thought spirals, essentially,
Yes.
and it consumes so much of the space in our mind and our energy that we end up being so unclear and uncertain, and we start making really, really stupid decisions because it's not based on the gut. We start overthinking things, and then we can make some really questionable decisions as human beings. We know this.
And we've all been there, haven't we?
Of course.
Example here. Some really questionable decisions. I won't say any of them were mistakes because I chose those decisions. I chose to go down certain different, routes, should I say, on my path, and that's okay. You live and you learn, and it's all about learning. It's all about accepting the fact that we are human. We are having a physical experience, but we have to allow ourselves to be given grace, whether it's from an external source or whether it's from within. And that's where people's faiths, or whatever they choose to follow, especially during a time like now, they grab onto even stronger. Have you noticed that? You can
Yeah.
empathize in that too, where people grab on extra tight, so to speak.
In times of uncertainty, absolutely, because as humans, we're always looking to something external to try and support us and help us. And this is where the healing becomes so extremely important, because healing your own wounds and looking in the mirror and doing the self-reflection not only strengthens your relationship to whatever entity or God it is that you believe in, but it increases that self-awareness, and it brings your nervous system to a level where it's mostly regulated. And being able to regulate with all this external noise and what's going on around us energetically, that makes all the difference. And that's why the title to this episode is Why Your Healing Matters Now More Than Ever. Because if you want to continue to function with a clear mind and good decision-making abilities, and without this constant low-level nagging anxiety, you've got to start looking inward and start healing your wounding, because you will start responding differently. Now, whenever we talk about energy and that type of thing, I lose a lot of people because they immediately start thinking that it's all, woo-woo, as people like to call it.
Yes.
But you know how skeptic I am. And you know that I always go and look for scientific backing, because I find that even though I'm holistically minded, I'm still Western qualified, and I still question a lot of things, and I still use a lot of these things on myself. I am my own biggest guinea pig at the end of the day. But if you go and look at the laws of physics, right, there's a principle called sympathetic resonance. Now, how they would demonstrate this is they would have a big room with two musical instruments, same instruments, at opposite ends of the room, and they would strike a chord on the one. And after a while, the same chord on the other opposite instrument would start vibrating as well.
That's fascinating.
Because the frequency picks up, it talks, it communicates, right? Now, the same thing happens with the human nervous system and energetic fields. When there's massive collective trauma happening, it creates these energetic waves that cause responses in sensitive people everywhere.
100% it does. It really, really does.
And I think the more unhealed trauma somebody carries, the more they resonate with these collective trauma frequencies. It's like having more strings that can be activated by what's happening around you. So the more wounding you have, the easily the fear and the anxiety will penetrate your energetic field, if that makes sense.
It does, 100%.
How do you help people, and of course yourself, to distinguish between what they're feeling as their own personal emotion versus what they're picking up from external sources?
So I'll start with how I work on myself. I think being able to understand how you're feeling, where you're at, is so important. But it's so wonderful when you've got a friend like you who I can say, Mona-Lise, I am battling with this. I don't know where it's coming from. I think it might be this. And we have a quick chat about it. And I will go back within and go, right, this is what I need to do. I need to ground myself. I need to understand that there's certain things I can't control, but what I can try and control is how I'm going to let things impact me. Now, the question you have about people when they come to me for reading, so to speak, guidance, whatever you want to call it, it will normally come through. It'll come through from source, spirit, higher self, whatever you want to call it, and it will actually ask them a question. It will actually. And the things I can't really remember what comes through for people, and that's part of the protection because it would drive me absolutely dilly if I could remember these things. But from what I do understand from people I've done readings for, things just flow through and it helps them a lot to make sense of things themselves. And then what normally happens is, and this is the part I love, it will give them something that they can look forward to. So a little bit of hope. But we have to take responsibilities for our own selves when it comes to our spirituality. That is important.
And you're so right. This is so important because just as much as we have to take responsibility for our own spirituality and our connection to source, or however you want to phrase that, we also need to take responsibility for our own healing. We've all been through trauma, whatever that looks like. And it's our responsibility to heal that. It's not our fault that it happened necessarily, but it is our responsibility to heal that. And once you start doing the work, you start increasing that level of self-trust. And what I've found with the clients that I work with is that once you start increasing the self-trust, the gut connection becomes so strong. People start automatically making decisions based on their intuition instead of overthinking spirals. And life just seems to start slotting into place, which is a beautiful thing to witness as a therapist from the outside.
Exactly. If I can add very quickly to that, when people come to you for reading, it is so important for them to understand, especially when they're thinking about making certain decisions, it's almost as though they're looking for a map, guidance. And what they choose to do, what they choose to perceive, will be completely up to them.
True, because that's the reality of life, is the way I perceive my surroundings, even if I'm in the same room as you, would be different to yours because our perceptions are completely different, and the way it's formed and shaped is completely different. So what's concerning me as well around this entire topic, apart from the emotional impact we're seeing, is the health impact. And yes, it's flu season. I mean, I'm recovering, you're recovering, a lot of people are recovering at the moment from that. But we're seeing more than that. It goes so much deeper, like it's serious illness diagnoses. And the science is showing that chronic emotional stress and nervous system dysregulation directly suppresses immune function. When our systems are stuck in survival mode, it suppresses your immune system. And that's when we start catching flus and that type of thing. But it's also when more serious disease can sort of take its hold. Have you noticed sort of an increase in this aspect of your life and people close to you?
Oh, 100%. So people close to me, I've noticed that there's been chronic illnesses which has come about, and it's surprised these wonderful people that I know. But if you look at what they've been through, it makes a lot of sense as to why that's come up now. And it does make me feel quite sad for them, because as much as you know what they could potentially do to help themselves, to come to speak to someone like you, for example, to understand where this is coming from, it really just, it doesn't always land right with people. People want to have an immediate fix, understandably so, because that's where the fear comes back in. that's where needing to have control comes back in. When you feel that you're losing control of what's going on, you want to make sure that you've got control, because then and there you don't trust other people except for something that you get told will work 100%. And that's when people will, resort to going to the doctor, which absolutely 100% Western medicine has a place.
Yeah, absolutely. Western medicine has got a great place. You know my view about this. I think that holistic healing and Western medicine work really well together.
Mm.
And if you're looking at certain drugs and certain prescription medicine for anxiety, for depression, etc., those things have a space. You know, if somebody is at a level where they are at the point where they will cause harm to themselves or somebody else, they need to have that medical intervention. And then while having that, continue doing the work, working through the therapy. And that's why I like working together with other medical professional psychiatrists, because they would manage the medication, I would manage the therapy, and together we can then wean the client or the patient off of the medication eventually. But they have a place. And if you're really sick, go and see the doctor. It is really important.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
there's no reason for us in this day and age to avoid seeing the doctor, apart from socio-political issues that we're facing globally. But other than that, if you're feeling ill and your body is struggling to recover, please seek medical attention. The
Absolutely.
body
There's
does
reasons
sometimes
for
need support.
it. I agree.
And, the research explains this as well. Elevated cortisol from chronic stress reduces our body's ability to fight off illness, maintain healthy function, and detect problems within the body, right? We're seeing increased inflammation while healing responses are suppressed. Isn't that actually a scary thought? So it's not just that we're feeling anxious, our bodies are literally taking on the stress physically of what's going on in the world around us.
Oh, yes, 100%. 100% naturally it does. What's very interesting, and if I can quote this, I don't know if you remember Dolores Cannon.
Yes.
She said something that I still go around and around in my mind about, which is, according to her, our bodies, we are not supposed to get sick. We are not supposed to get
Correct.
sick.
That is what she says.
And that's food for thought.
Now, if you don't know who Dolores Cannon is the founder of QHHT therapy, which I'm busy studying, by the way, which is essentially past life regression. And the messages that have come through this woman as a channel and through her clients that she works with has been extremely enlightening in educating people in the spiritual community about, a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that we can feel but not necessarily see.
Exactly.
Okay, so this brings me to something that I've been learning about that feels like it's been a missing piece. And it's that we're not meant to navigate trauma or collective trauma alone, especially the people like us who feel it quite heavily and deeply, and people who are empathic, right? There's this concept called co-regulation from polyvagal theory. And it says that the nervous system is designed to help one another, as in a community sense, to find stability through safe connection. And I'm wondering if this explains why we crave being around certain people when we're navigating difficult situations.
Of course we do. And I think it's very important for people to know that they can reach out to those who care about them when they are feeling scared, or they're feeling hurt or abandoned, or um just lost, because
And
you're
fearful.
yeah, because you do, you get lost in with what's going on in the world, or with what you're personally going through very, very quickly, that you can hit a spiral, and you don't want to be in that dark place for too long. You need to be able to be around those because people do uplift you. People just knowing that someone's there for you to say, look, what can I do? Or have a cup of tea with me, or, you know, take you somewhere just to kind of distract you from what's going on. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, people's time is so precious, but the biggest gift you can give someone is your time.
I mean, just a hug. And I'm sure you've experienced it, right? When you are super anxious and somebody that you care about gives you a hug, immediately it grounds and calms your nervous system, right? And that's co-regulation in action. Now, it's very easy as a trauma response to isolate yourself when you feel triggered. Isolation is a coping mechanism at the end of the day. It's part of your frame of reference, not for everybody, but for some people who have been through some experiences. And this is dangerous at the moment. Because of the collective trauma, we should not be isolating at all. We need healthy connection with others and connections that make us feel safe. Okay. There's a difference between co-regulation and carrying somebody else's stuff, though. And that's really important to also be present while you're dealing with other people, right? So, how do you recommend to people listening to make sure that when you are with somebody else, whether you are helping them to co-regulate or whether they are helping you, because this is a mutual relationship and it's mutually beneficial, whether it's you needing the regulation or the other person, both are benefiting from this connection and interaction at the end of the day, right? So, how would you recommend?
So, my recommendation is that you, when you're sitting with said person, you listen. First of all, listen, because what they're going through and feeling is very real to them. That's their reality. What I think one should never do is start talking about when you went through something and how that made you feel, etc., 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 because it dismisses, that person feels dismissed, should I say, and they don't feel that they're being properly heard, and they feel that it's becoming about the person who they've entrusted. What you can do, on the other hand, is to go, I hear you, and I I see where you're coming from. This is what I did when I had something similar happen to me. It might help you. Give certain suggestions. Just listen and let the person feel that they can actually ask you questions too with how you would handle the situation or if you've been through something similar. It's called being real, but you've got to hold yourself accountable, because if you hold yourself accountable to yourself, you're putting boundaries down. Because what you can't do, as you said before, is to have people, even though you love them and you want to give them so much, phone you a lot and say, look, I need help. What do you suggest I do? If it's a constant, you won't be able to focus on what you need to focus on in everyday life.
So, what you're saying essentially is start with yourself and
Yeah.
make sure that whatever connection you have with others, that there are clear boundaries in place. So, because sometimes when you are the one holding the space for somebody else, it can be extremely draining.
Mm.
And if you're doing that on multiple occasions in a single day or for multiple people at the same time, it can actually get quite heavy if you're not,
Yes.
practicing your spiritual hygiene in between as well.
Well, it's a
So
lot because you've got a
that's
life
really
to
important.
live. Yeah, you've
Mm.
got a life to live. You've got to earn your money. We all have responsibilities, but you're always going to have people who you love and care dearly for, who you'll always make the time for. But it's also feeling that you can be honest and say, I don't have time right now. Let's get back to this when I'm done at a certain time. So just being very clear. I think communication is, it can either be our friend or our foe, depending on how you choose to communicate.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have to protect yourself at an energetic level as well. And again, this is where the healing becomes so important, because if your baseline frequency is already a little bit higher, you're healed, you've looked in the mirror, you're continuing to do the work, that's going to create a much more stable place for the other person to bounce off of. And this is what people don't understand. Your healing is infectious. Just as much as anxiety and fear is infectious, so is healing. People don't necessarily get that. And that is why right now we have to focus on healing our trauma so that we can start elevating the baseline frequency of the collective, not just of ourselves, right?
Exactly.
And that's also why it's so important to have a community of people and close friends who get it, who understand you, who know where you're coming from. Do you agree with that?
I do. And we've got a friend who said something very beautiful the other day. And she said, Candice, I'm rooting for you. And that's a very nice thing to say, because trees do root for each other.
I love that.
And when you think about it, and you read up about trees in general and what they've discovered, trees help other trees heal. So when they aren't well, they actually push through a lot of healing energy to the other trees. They look after one another. So trees aren't just these bits of, wood standing up and looking pretty, or they actually can help each other beautifully. And that to me essentially is like a community. You should be able to have that. And if you don't have that, what do you say to that? How would you explain to somebody would be the best way to find a safe space in a community, or to find new connections, especially people who have issues around meeting new people, or people who don't trust people? How would you
Look, I always look at this from a very different perspective. It's generally, if you struggle to trust other people, there's an element of yourself that you don't trust. If you are suspicious of other people's decision-making capabilities, chances are you're suspicious of your own decision-making capabilities. So I'll always say that, we have to look in the mirror, but there's a deeper layer to this, and to community, and to bringing in your soul tribe and the people who truly, truly, truly get you at the deepest level. And again, as with pretty much everything else, it always points back to healing. Because when you heal, you up your baseline frequency, and your baseline frequency will determine what you attract into your life in the form of other people and experiences. So if you want to start attracting a healthy community of like-minded individuals and people who are healing and people who are in the know and who can support you in the way that it truly matters, that's your indication that you need to look within and start healing.
Exactly. And to give you a quick example, so obviously, looking at the villages in England, the two prominent things you'll always find in a village will always be a church and a pub.
Yes.
And that is because that's where people would go to for that exact reason, for that support, and to have hope. Obviously, when people got together at the pub, it's because they don't want to necessarily be alone. That's where they can go and speak to other people who they know, and have a little bit of an uplift. It's so important that we focus on now in modern society how we can tap into that, as you say, like-minded people. Whether you
Absolutely.
start a hobby, if you've got a dog and you go dog walking, don't be shy to say hi and smile at someone, because that can actually then generate a conversation, and that's
Absolutely.
how you get to know people.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, we're so scared of doing things on our own. We're so scared to go out alone, or to go to a dance lesson alone, or to go horse riding alone, or to go to the movies alone. And I don't know why, because spending time with yourself should be easy and natural. But again, this comes back to healing, because if your mind is full of noise, that's when being alone is very difficult. And again, there's this balance between spending time alone, doing the work, healing, but making sure that you connect to your community, because connection isn't the meaning of life. It's not the sole reason, but in my opinion, connection adds meaning to life.
It does. It does. It's very important. And another thing which I can say is that no one owes anyone anything. However, it's very important to know and remember that what we all deserve is love. We deserve respect, and we deserve support.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I just want to touch back on something quickly. And it might sound idealistic, but I think it's actually rooted in the way that energy works. So when we heal our trauma and regulate our own personal nervous system, we're not actually just helping ourselves. We're changing the frequency that we contribute to the collective. And you remember how I mentioned sympathetic resonance? If we keep working on our own frequencies and we keep healing, it actually creates a ripple effect in the quantum field. Our clear, regulated frequency can help others to find their own resonance with peace instead of a resonance with chaos. What's your take on that? Do you agree with it?
I do agree with it. And I think a simple analogy for people to kind of have in their mind is if you look at fruit in a basket and there's one fruit that's gone off, you find that the other fruit around it gets affected very, very quickly. And the same would go for the opposite, a positive effect. And I do agree with that. I really, really do. And you see it with a lot of people when they get together, whether it's to meditate together and connect to try and help someone heal or to up a frequency, especially with what's going on now, or when people get together and pray because they believe in the power of prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was research done by the Heart Math Institute showing that when one person achieves heart brain coherence, it measurably affects others nearby. I think people are a lot more connected and interconnected than what we think we are. But what I've really learned in the work that I do is that it's not just about the individual healing or just about the community. It's about both. You need both to really entrench the work that you're doing. You need that time to do the individual work, to look in the mirror, to reflect. But you do need the community support around you. It brings a completely different element to integrating your new healed version and to increasing your frequency. And of course, the added bonus is that we then spread it to one another, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so last question, I think, for this section or this topic at least, if we become the stabilizing field, so if you think back to the guitar string, right, you become a clear guitar string resonating just with peace and with love and with all the good stuff, because you're healing yourself to change your perspective and your outlook on life, right? Then you resonate with peace. And when you resonate with peace, the chances of the chaos and the external noise affecting that peace becomes much less. Because now the collective frequency is higher. So we're starting to, hopefully, when this happens, see less and less of the fear and the chaos and the anxiety taking hold of people at a personal level, right?
Exactly.
What do you think would be possible for us if we actually had to really start doing healing work in community and individual level?
Do you know what that is? Wow. I think the possibilities would be endless and it would be absolutely beautiful. And yes, it's something which I hope for every single day people will be able to experience. And it does start with us. It starts with one individual. It really, really does. And I do agree with the entire concept. And I do think that if we can just for a moment step back and say, hang on a minute, how do I want to see things play out? How do I feel about what I would like to see have happen tomorrow? And speak to someone very close to you who you love about it. That excitement, that joy, that hope immediately comes into effect. So yes, when you've got loads of people who is in your community, you all decide, right, let's hope for peace, or let's pray for peace, or it's so powerful. It really, really is, because it does start with you and it also filters out into the community and therefore the world. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful concept, really, because, humans are wired for connection.
Absolutely. Can you imagine for a split second, and this is part of the soul's intelligence, you are in a situation where you're living in a town or a village, and all of a sudden, let's say there's no food supply, but there's farmers around you. Do you sit back and wait for the food to come to you, or do you go to the farmer as a community and offer to help? And therefore, you'll be able to be rewarded with food.
Exactly. And this is why community is going to be important for us moving forward. We don't necessarily know. We haven't necessarily faced this kind of issue before. This is a whole next level for us. And I honestly feel and believe that if we stick together as a community and we heal ourselves and we do the work that we need to do, we can prevent this from escalating to the levels that it's been at before. And as we know, these cycles repeat until we respond differently. Yeah.
Exactly. And therefore, you're feeding your soul.
Okay. So, having said all of this, I just want to quickly get practical for people who are feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening right now. And I want to share a few tools and techniques that you can use that can help you to immediately regulate your nervous system and calm yourself down. Um, and then, of course, I'm going to ask Candice to chat about a few energetic practices around this as well. For immediate regulation, I love the 4-7-8 breath. So you would inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and then exhale for 8. So your exhale is always longer than the inhale, and that really calms down the nervous system. It's even better if you can combine that exhale with a vocal sigh, so there's noise to it. It signals safety to your nervous system. What's in your toolkit, Candice? What would you use?
Well, and I think it's different for many people, but for me specifically, I would always sit in a quiet space and go within. And I focus on doing my protection work. And essentially, what that looks like is I imagine myself being completely cloaked and held in a warm, beautiful, soft pink light where you can feel it. It's that whole feeling of knowing that regardless of what's going on, you are safe. And that's what I do for myself at all times.
Yeah, that's a really great practice, and I have used it as well. On a more physical level, to try and decrease feelings of overwhelm and anxiety, I've also found that EFT, or tapping, as a lot of people call it, really works phenomenally well in this case. So, a sentence that you could use for this would be, even though I'm feeling overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. I'll be posting some tapping videos on my YouTube channel and my Instagram page, so you'll be seeing that in sequence, and that can really help to calm the nervous system. It's also something that I teach to all my clients, because if you're in a situation where you need to regulate yourself within 2 minutes, this really works very, very well. Another thing that I do is I set very clear media and social media boundaries. I'm very, very careful with what I consume news-wise, because there's so much fake news out there as well. And again, like I mentioned earlier, seeing it through a screen, your body is still responding as if it's in immediate threat. So something that I really focus on doing is not consuming any news content or any social media content, for that matter, for the first 30 to 40 minutes after waking up, because you're setting your nervous system up for failure if you're already making it anxious when you first open your eyes. So that's quite a big thing for me. I make sure that I only consume news from factual sources that are verified, obviously, and not streaming old stuff.
Oh, there's so much of that.
And I make sure that I only do that towards the end of my day, not just before I go to bed, but after my work day, before I start winding down for bed. That's when I'll allow myself some time to sort of dig into the facts of what's really happened today, so that I'm aware and not being an ostrich and sticking my head in the sand, acting like nothing's happening around me, because I do believe in being prepared. How do you feel about that? How do you balance that factor of being informed and understanding what's really happening versus protecting yourself from dysregulating your nervous system?
So I would say it's very similar to you. I do agree with the fact that when you wake up in the morning, you do need to understand that's your time where you can set your day up to either be a success, or positive or happy experience, as opposed to an anxious one, an angry one that leaves you feeling like a complete failure. So yes, watching anything to do with the news in the morning, first thing, I would absolutely not do. Social media, I also do tend to stay away from that until I'm fully awake and ready for my day, because we do use social media for work. But I just find that the minute you feel too much of something, whatever it may be, you will experience that throughout the day. So I do make sure that I do my protection work in the morning, and I do the protection work over everyone I love, and I actually choose how I would like my day to feel, because you don't necessarily know how your day will look in detail, but how do you want your day to feel? So yes, that's very, very important.
And science echoes this, right?
It
Your
does.
reality is your reality.
Do you
You
remember that?
create your reality.
You do. And there's a scientific experiment, if you go onto YouTube, putting energy affecting water. You've seen that, haven't you? Where
Yeah.
they've got different water, and anger, like angry music, affected the water. And they could
Mm.
actually, under a microscope, pick up how the crystals looked. And it looked really horrible and dark and, deformed, as opposed to lovely, soft classical music. The different type of crystal that came up was a healing frequency type of crystal. It's the same with love music, lovely love music. It really does echo everywhere. Everything you're talking about, spiritually, um, physically, having feelings, it echoes. It really, really does.
Yeah, we've seen the same with plants. When you speak love and supportive things to a plant, it flourishes. And when you spew hate at it, it dies.
Yeah,
Words are spells. It's energy. It's intention.
100%.
So that's so important. This balance, I think, is something that we are constantly striving to maintain throughout life in every aspect of our lives. Is balance between work and family, balance between 3D and spirituality, balance between, everything, dark and light, everything in life is balance, right? And
100%.
that's why I often laugh and say, I don't think balance exists because you never quite find the sweet spot. You'll always lean just a little bit more to the one side, I suppose. But we are human, and that's the part of this experience that we're trying to embrace, after all. That's why we're here. Um, what I've also seen is when I'm looking for people in my community and support within my community, and I reach out, I'm looking for people who can hold space without minimizing what I'm feeling or trying to fix it. Just somebody who can listen. And what are you looking for when you're looking for healthy relationships and connections during this difficult time?
So it's just really clearly for someone to meet me where I'm at. And what I really, and I'm very lucky in that sense that I have that love and support. Um, it's that safe space where you can go and just be you and be real. Explain how you feel. I know that within how you are explaining how you're feeling or whatever you're going through, that within that moment you are safe because the people around you really do care and value you as a human being. And ultimately, they do love you. And that's where the beauty is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, I'm going to say that's what adds meaning to life. I also just want to again stress how important it is to look after your physical vessel during this time. We've touched on the health risks associated with high cortisol and continued episodes or long term stress. But right now, it's so important to make sure that you are looking after your body, that you're nourishing it, that you're taking the right supplements to help with your immune system to fight off any illness, etc. I'm curious to know how you support your physical body during heavy times like this specifically.
So, what I do is I work closely with a really good naturopath who's made up fantastic tinctures for me. But on top of that, I also use very important things I know my body needs, certain vitamins and minerals, etc. And I also have a lot of fiber because through all of this going on, it can really, really affect our digestive tract, as you very well know. And then,
Yeah,
of
that's
course, exercise, very important too.
Yeah, that's very true and very relevant. The digestion gets suppressed when fight or flight is activated.
Mm.
So we need to be very mindful of our fiber intake and also things like probiotics and any sort of supplement that helps support the gut. I know you've put me on slippery elm, so thank you very much for
So
that.
good. You're so welcome. Thank my naturopath for that one.
Thank you, Mr. Naturopath. So, as we wrap up, I also want to leave our listeners with three main or key takeaways. What would be the first thing that you would want people to remember from this conversation?
Well, it would definitely be that our, nervous system response that people are having at the moment is really, it's real and it's normal, especially with what's going on in the world. So when you're feeling anxious or scared or fearful, understand it is normal what you are feeling. That nervous system response to you in that specific moment is real.
Yes, that validation is really important because I think a lot of people think they must be going crazy or they're being too sensitive or there's something wrong with them, and it's not. It's documented by research. Your response to global events is real. The second takeaway for me is this: individual healing work plus community co regulation equals collective healing. We need both our personal healing practice and a community of people who understand healthy boundaries so they don't drain your energy in turn. This has to be mutually beneficial, right? What would you add as a third key takeaway?
Well, I would say that throughout situations like this, you can be compassionate, but without absorbing other people's pain. That's very important. Do not absorb other people's pain, but be compassionate.
Yes, absolutely. We can care deeply and contribute to healing without absorbing the world's pain into our own system. I think people don't always realize this, but we can maintain compassion while protecting our energy. And that's actually more helpful than what the opposite would be.
Oh yes.
So, as we close out this episode, I just want to remind everyone that this is a judgment free zone. Wherever you are in your healing journey, whatever your capacity is right now, it's all valid. Candice, what would you want to say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by everything that we've discussed?
To remember that the most powerful frequency is love. So hold on to that frequency.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I just want to add, if you're feeling called to do the deeper healing work, trust that instinct. Whether it's therapy, energy work, spiritual community, whatever it might be, or all of the above, follow what feels right for you. Your healing matters. Your peace matters. Your regulated nervous system matters, not just to you, but to all of us. Candice, thank you for this beautiful conversation and for being such an example of someone who bridges both worlds with so much grace.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And speaking with you always reminds me of the most important things we can do for ourselves to help ourselves in so many ways. So thank you for doing the work you're doing, because it's very powerful and so needed out there.
Oh, your words are so kind. Thank you. And thank you, beautiful humans, listeners, for being here, for doing your healing work, and for choosing love over fear. Remember, context is everything. Your wounds are your spiritual curriculum, and healing is your spiritual path. Until next time, keep doing the work and keep supporting each other. Thank you, dear soul, for joining me on Back to the Beginning. If this episode resonated with you, please rate this podcast and share it with somebody else who needs the message. When you rate this podcast and take a screenshot, send it to us via DM on Instagram and we'll send you a free healing resource as our gift to you. Find all our programs and connect with me at www.expergotherapy.com, where transformation meets practical reality. Until next time, remember, you have everything within you to heal and connect authentically. See you next episode.